My wife saw my car sinking, heard me pounding on glass, and still ran past me to break her ex-boyfriend's window first. Nolan Cross was conscious, sitting high in his half-submerged SUV, shouting her name like he owned it. Grace looked once at me through the rain, once at him, then raised the rescue hammer in her hand and made her choice. The glass of Nolan's driver's side window burst before mine did. That sound cut through the storm, sharper than the river water cutting around my chest. I was trapped sideways in my sedan. Seatbelt jammed, left shoulder pinned by crushed frame, cold water climbing from my waist to my ribs. Her orange rescue jacket flashed outside my window for half a second. Then she was gone. I had funded her equipment. I had built the technology that recorded everything. And when the water reached my chin, I pressed the button that would upload the truth to 3 secure servers. She thought she could rewrite the river. She forgot who owned the cameras. My wife saw my car sinking, heard me pounding on the glass, and still ran past me to break her ex-boyfriend's window first. Nolan Cross was conscious, sitting high in his half-submerged SUV, shouting her name like he owned it. Grace looked once at me through the rain, once at him, then raised the rescue hammer in her hand and made her choice. The glass of Nolan's driver's side window burst before mine did. That sound cut through the storm, sharper than the river water cutting around my chest. I was trapped sideways in my sedan. Seatbelt jammed, left shoulder pinned by the crushed frame. The Westbridge Causeway lights flickered above the Black River. Rain hammered the roof. Cold water poured through the vents and climbed from my waist to my ribs. Grace's orange rescue jacket flashed outside my window for half a second. I believed training would beat history. She was a river rescue commander. She had taught rookies to prioritize the victim in the lower vehicle. The victim with faster water. Intrusion. The victim with less air. She had taught those words in classrooms funded by my money using equipment my company designed. Then Nolan yelled, "Grace, I can't move." He could move. I saw his arm. He had lifted it to wave at her. Grace's head snapped toward him. I hit my window with my elbow until my skin split. She turned back, saw me, and mouthed something I could not hear. Then she ran to him. Not walked. Ran. The rescue hammer came down on Nolan's window. He reached through the broken glass and grabbed her forearm like a lover coming home from war. His face turned toward me through the rain, and even from 10 yards away, I saw the shape of his smile. He mouthed 2 words, "Still mine." Water reached my chin. I stopped wasting strength on the window. My right hand found the emergency tab under the dash. The system was one of my prototypes, a waterproof crash unit built to upload cabin audio, exterior cameras, vehicle telemetry, and GPS to 3 secure servers when submerged. Grace had once called it overkill. I pressed the tab. A red light blinked under the cracked dashboard. Upload active. Only then did I fight the seatbelt again. Outside, Grace hooked Nolan into a rescue line. 2 firefighters pulled him toward the embankment. He stumbled once dramatically, though the water around him barely reached his chest. Grace held his face between both hands. Her helmet lamp caught his cheek. He leaned into her touch. My cabin went dark. I do not remember the second rescue crew breaking my rear window. I remember hands dragging me through water. I remember vomiting river water on wet concrete. I remember Grace shouting my name after the hard part was already done. The next time I opened my eyes, fluorescent hospital lights sat above me. My throat burned. My left arm was wrapped. My ribs felt like someone had closed the door on them. A monitor beeped beside me. Grace stood at the foot of my bed, hair still damp, rescue jacket hanging open over a gray shirt beside her. Through the curtain gap, Nolan lay on the next bed with a blanket around his shoulders and 1 bandage across his temple. He looked better than I did. He also looked pleased. Grace stepped closer. "Ethan, thank God you're awake." I turned my head toward the bedside tray. My phone was there in a plastic evidence bag. Cracked, but working. The prototype had done its job. Grace reached for my hand. I moved my hand away. Her fingers stopped above the sheet for the first time since the river. Her face tightened. "Ethan," she said softly. "Not now." Nolan gave a weak laugh from the next bed. "Come on, man." Clear his throat. She saved both of us. I did not answer him. Grace's voice lowered. "You were both in the water. I made a call. I looked at her. Her eyes held the look she used with rookies who question an order. Calm. Superior. Certain she would be forgiven once she explained. You made a choice. I said. Her jaw shifted. I made a rescue decision. Nolan pushed himself up on one elbow. I was trapped. My gaze moved to him. His blanket slipped. His wrist moved easily. His legs were dry below the knees. You waved at her, I said. His smile thinned. Grace turned sharply. Ethan, you almost died. Do not turn this into a jealousy scene. There it was. Not shock. Not apology. Management. She wanted to manage me. She wanted to place my near death into a neat box labeled husband and security. Close the lid and stand in front of cameras as the brave woman who saved everyone. I reached for my phone. Grace noticed the movement. You need to rest. I unlocked the screen with my thumb. The emergency app showed 4 completed uploads. Cabin audio, front dash, rear dash, exterior left telemetry packet server logs. Grace's eyes followed the screen. What is that? She asked. The part of the river you don't get to rewrite. Nolan's expression changed first. Not fear yet. Calculation. Grace stepped closer. Ethan, give me the phone. I tapped 3 contacts. Mara Pierce, my attorney. Tom Alvarez, investigative producer at WCN7. Captain Review Board. Intake, River Rescue Division. The files were already attached from the secure server. I added 1 line full footage from Westbridge Rescue. Preserve metadata. Do not accept edited copies from Grace Merritt Vale or Nolan Cross. Grace's hand closed around the bed rail. Ethan, I hit send. 3 small whooshes left the phone. Nolan sat fully upright. Grace stared at me as if the hospital floor had shifted under her boots. You sent it to someone? She asked. 2, 3 someones. Her voice sharpened. Without talking to me. I set the phone face down on my chest. You saw me sinking without talking to me. The curtain moved. A nurse stepped in, looked between us, and pretended not to see the war starting. Grace drew herself taller. I am your wife. Then you should have reached my window before his. Her face flushed. Nolan swung his legs over the side of his bed. This is insane. Grace, don't let him punish you for doing your job. I looked at Nolan's bare feet touching the floor. Careful, I said. Trapmen usually do not stand that fast. His fingers tightened on the blanket. Grace turned on me. Enough, I said. Nothing. My phone buzzed under my palm. 1 message from Mara. Do not speak to either of them. I am coming. A 2nd message from Tom Alvarez. We have received the files. Is this on record? I typed with 1 thumb. Yes. Then I added. Use my name. Grace watched every movement. Ethan, what did you just do? The monitor beeped steadily beside me. I looked past her to Nolan. He had stopped smiling. I made sure the next window you break. I said, is not the truth. My phone buzzed again. Tom Alvarez. Can we verify by 5? If yes, this leads at 6.00. Grace took 1 step backward for the first time that night. She looked toward Nolan instead of me, and Nolan looked away. Grace came back 30 minutes later with a hospital administrator, 2 rescue officers, and the face she wore for public disasters. Not her wife face. Her press conference face. Her hair was tied back. Her jacket was zipped. Her wedding ring flashed when she folded her hands in front of her. Ethan, she said, controlled and careful. We need to clarify the incident before it becomes damaging. I was sitting upright now. The nurse had cut away my wet clothes. My ribs were taped. My left arm throbbed under fresh bandages. Mara had not arrived yet, so I kept my answer short. No, the administrator blinked. Grace's captain, a broad man named Heron Pike, cleared his throat. Mr. Vale, nobody is here to pressure you. I looked at the clipboard in his hand. Then you will not mind leaving the statement form outside. His fingers shifted. Nolan appeared behind them in a borrowed hoodie, moving like a man who wanted witnesses to see how brave he was. Grace noticed him and immediately stepped half a body in front of him. I noticed that too. It was becoming a habit of hers. Shielding him first. Nolan's gaze dropped to my bandaged arm. Man, this has gone too far. Grace saved you. I did not respond. Grace looked irritated by my silence. Ethan, Nolan could have gone into shock. He was standing in the hallway 10 minutes ago. He is trained to mask pain. He was trained to fake it better than that. Nolan's nostrils flared. Captain Pike raised a hand. Let's keep this civil. Grace took the clipboard from him and placed it on my tray. The top sheet was titled Preliminary Victim Statement. I read the first paragraph. Due to low visibility and simultaneous hazard conditions, Commander Merritt Vale proceeded according to triage protocol and extracted the victim in the most accessible vehicle first. I looked at Grace. You already wrote my memory for me. Her mouth tightened. It is standard language. No, it is protective language. It protects the department from misinformation. It protects you. The administrator shifted. Mr. Vale, this is just preliminary. I picked up the pen, clicked it once, and drew a straight line through the entire paragraph. Grace's hand jerked. Ethan, I wrote beneath it. I was conscious. I was visible. My vehicle was lower in the water. Commander Grace Merritt Vale made eye contact with me and proceeded to Nolan Cross first. Then I signed my name. The room changed temperature. Nolan laughed under his breath. You are really doing this because your wife touched my face. Grace turned toward him. Nolan, stop. But she did not say he was wrong. That told me everything. I placed the pen down. Captain Pike looked at the statement as if it might burn his fingers. Grace leaned close enough that only I could hear her. You are angry. I understand. But if you damage my command over a personal reaction, you will regret it. I looked at her wedding ring. For years, I had watched that ring open doors for her. Donors trusted her because she was married to the man funding half her equipment. City officials took meetings because my company backed her pilot programs. Families saw our wedding photos and fundraising videos and believed in the brave commander. With a quiet, supportive husband, she thought that support was permanent. She thought I was part of her uniform. I picked up my phone and opened my banking app. Grace saw the screen. What are you doing? I removed her from my private emergency medical authorization, then from my health insurance liaison access, then from my company family travel policy, then from the joint donor portal I had built for her foundation. One by one, doors closed, transaction authority revoked, shared card suspended, foundation emergency line disabled, pending audit. Grace watched the notifications hit her phone. Her eyes widened at the third one. Ethan, why did I just lose access to the donor dashboard? Because the dashboard is mine. Captain Pike looked up. Nolan's expression sharpened with interest. Then worry. Grace lowered her voice. This is not the time. It became the time when you brought paperwork to my hospital bed. She clenched the clipboard. That portal supports water safety programs. It also supports Nolan's consulting invoices. Nolan stepped forward. Careful. I turned my head toward him. His borrowed hoodie had my Rescue Foundation logo on it. Second reach. My foundation. My design. My silent checks. You are wearing something paid for by my money. I said careful belongs to you. Grace's cheeks colored. Nolan consults because he helped build community trust. He built invoices. You do not understand field work. I understand numbers. Nolan gave a short laugh. Barrett is spreadsheet. Husband thinks he is a rescuer. I did not look away from Grace. You have 2 hours to remove him from any account connected to me. Her face hardened. Or what? My phone buzzed. Mara, I am downstairs. Say nothing further. Also, I found a post-nup clause. Foundation misuse triggers immediate audit rights. I turned the phone so Grace could read the message. Her hand stopped halfway to the bed rail. The administrator saw enough to step back. Captain Pike rubbed his jaw. Nolan tried to recover. Grace, this is financial abuse. I tapped the hoodie logo on his chest with 2 fingers. The fabric dipped. Then take off the evidence. His face darkened. Grace moved between us again. You will not humiliate him. That sentence landed harder than the crash. Now you will not humiliate me him. The nurse came in with discharge papers for Nolan. He was being released the same night. It would be held for observation. Nolan took the papers and smiled at Grace. Can you drive me? My SUV is underwater. Grace hesitated only for a second. Then she said, Of course. My wife was leaving the hospital with a man she had pulled from the water before me. She turned back at the doorway. We will talk when you calm down. I picked up the revised statement and handed it to Captain Pike. No, I said, you will talk when my attorney calls. Grace's phone rang before she could answer. She looked down. Then again. Then again. 3 calls in a row. Her foundation treasurer. 1 major donor. The city liaison. Grace's confident face cracked at the edges. Nolan looked over her shoulder. What is it? She did not answer him. Her screen lit with a text from the donor portal. Emergency funding access suspended. Pending account ownership verification. I leaned back against the pillow. The river had not finished taking things from her. It had only started with me. Mara Pierce arrived with wet hair, black heels, and the kind of calm people pay for when their lives are about to split in half. She did not ask if I was all right. She looked at the bandages, the oxygen monitor, the bruising on my throat, and said, "We are preserving everything." That was why she was my lawyer. Feeling could wait. Evidence could not. She set a tablet on the tray and opened a secure folder. The dash unit uploaded 4 video angles. Cabine audio, GPS accelerometer data, door pressure readings, and water intrusion timing. Your vehicle became critical at 8.4216. Nolan's cabin remained above the water line until 8.493. Grace reached him first at 8.4311. I closed my eyes for 1 second. Less than a minute after my car went critical. Mara continued. The rear camera captured her looking at your window. The audio captured you hitting the glass. The exterior left camera captured Nolan raising his hand before she broke his window. Good. She paused. Most people would have said it was not good. Mara understood what I meant. Good meant usable. Good meant nobody could bury it. Good meant my wife could cry later. But she would not edit the river. Mara slid a form toward me. Medical revocation is done. Separation notice can be filed today. Audit demand for second reach can go out by noon. Complaint to the Rescue Division Review Board is already drafted for the news station. I recommend a limited consent release. They can air the footage, but not your private medical information. Do it. She studied me. Grace will claim emotional retaliation. She can claim the moon is wet. She will say you are punishing her for saving another victim. She can say that on camera. Mara's pen stopped. You want her to? I want everyone to hear the question before they see the answer. A faint smile touched Mara's mouth. You are angrier than you look. I am not angry. No, I'm awake. She nodded once and passed me another document. Temporary separation and preservation of marital assets. I signed. The pen felt heavier than it should have. Not because of doubt, because every signature took something I had built in silence and dragged it into the open. By noon, the hospital room became a switchboard. Grace called 7 times. I did not answer. Her mother called twice. Her father sent 1 text. Do not destroy your wife over a rescue call. I forwarded it to Mara. Nolan posted first. A photo of himself on his couch. Blanket around his shoulders. Grace's hand visible on the edge of the frame. Holding a mug. Caption. Grateful to be alive. Some people run toward danger. Others run toward blame. The comments filled fast. Hero. Stay strong. Ignore jealous people. Grace did not like the post publicly. She did not ask him to remove it either. I opened our family group chat. My parents. Her brother. 2 cousins. A few people who had been close enough to stand near the altar at our wedding. Her mother had already written, "Everyone, please give Grace grace tonight. She saved 2 lives." I typed 1 sentence. The full evidence is now preserved by counsel. Then I sent nothing else. Let them sit with that. At 2:00 in the afternoon, Captain Pike called Mara. She put him on. Speaker, Mr. Vale. He said, voice rougher than before. The department needs a copy of the original footage. You have received the preservation notice. Mara said, you can request it through formal review. We're trying to get ahead of a public misunderstanding. I spoke for the first time. You mean ahead of the news? Silence. Then Pike said, Grace is one of the best commanders we have. She had 1 job in my window. That is not fair. Neither is drowning while your wife rescues. Her ex-Pike inhaled. Nolan Cross is also a victim. Nolan Cross was standing. He has a history with the department. He has a history with my wife. Mara touched the table once. Enough. I stopped. Pike changed tactics. Would you consider delaying media release until internal review? No, Mr. Vale. No. I repeated. Your internal review already put a false paragraph in front of me while I was on oxygen. Another silence. Then Pike said, "That was preliminary. That was rehearsal." He ended the call politely. People always ended calls politely when they realized the other side had recordings. By 4, I was discharged with a sling, 2 prescriptions, and instructions not to drive. My brother Luke picked me up. He looked at the bruises on my face and did not make the joke he had probably prepared. He just opened the passenger door. "You going home?" he asked. "My house." "Yes." He caught the distinction. "Grace there?" "No." She took Nolan home. Luke's hands tightened on the steering wheel. I looked out at the wet city. News vans were already parked near the hospital entrance. One reporter recognized me, stepped forward, then stopped when Marlowe lifted one finger from the curb. "Not yet." On the drive home, my phone lit up with a text from Grace. "You sent lawyers after me before asking why." I typed back, "I saw why." She answered fast, "You saw chaos. You saw seconds. You have no idea what I had to process." I sent her one still image from the rear camera. In it, Grace's helmet light pointed directly at my window. My hand was visible against the glass. Nolan's SUV sat higher in the background. I wrote, "This is what you processed." She did not reply. At home, the front porch light was on. Grace always left it on when she expected to come back late. I looked at that light for a moment. Then I opened my security app and changed the door code. Luke watched from the driver's seat. "You sure?" I stepped out carefully. "Ribs pulling?" No, he looked surprised. I walked toward the door. "I am certain inside." The house smelled like Grace's cedar candles and the coffee she never finished. A framed photo from her rescue awards ceremony sat on the hallway table. In the photo, she held a plaque. I stood 3 foot behind her, half cut off by the frame. I took the photo down. Not smashed, not dramatic. I placed it face down in a drawer. Then I opened the safe in my office. The postnuptial agreement was inside, along with the deed to the house, the foundation charter, donor schedules, insurance, policies, and a sealed envelope Grace had never asked about because she thought boring papers were beneath heroic people. I carried everything to the dining table. At 5:12 p.m., Tom Alvarez called. "We verified the metadata." He said, "We also have bridge traffic cam confirmation from the city feed. We can air tonight." What angle? Public safety failure. Hero narrative under question. Husband of commander speaks through evidence. I did not want sympathy music. He paused. Understood. No. Blurred footage where the decision is unclear. We will show enough. And Nolan's post. We have it. I looked at the table full of papers. Use it. Tom exhaled softly. "Mr. Vale. Grace. Merit is beloved in this city. This will hit hard." She should have thought of that when she ran past my window. At 5:59, I stood in my living room with my ribs taped and my sling digging into my neck. Channel 7's opening music played. The anchor looked into the camera. Tonight, exclusive footage raises serious questions about a celebrated river rescue and the commander at the center of it. My phone buzzed. Grace. Then her mother. Then Captain Pike. Then a number I did not recognize. I did not answer any of them on screen. The first frame appeared. My car was already sinking. Grace was looking straight at me, and the whole city was about to watch her turn away. Grace did not come home that night. She sent messages instead. "You made it ugly." Then the station cut context. "Then Nolan is getting threats. Because of you." Not once did she write, "I am sorry I left you in the water." The broadcast did what clean evidence always does. It removed adjectives. It did not call Grace cruel. It did not call Nolan a liar. It did not call me betrayed. It showed time. It showed water levels. It showed Grace's helmet light crossing my windshield. It showed Nolan's hand moving before rescue. And it showed her breaking his window first. By midnight, the city had picked sides. By morning, people who had called Grace a hero were asking why a rescue commander ignored triage. By noon, Grace's department announced an internal review. By 3, Nolan deleted his post. By 6, Grace's mother invited me to dinner in my own house. That was how she phrased it. "We should all sit down at your home and settle this privately before more damage is done." I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I answered 7. Luke told me not to do it. Mara told me to record it. So I did both things that mattered. At 6:45, I placed my phone on the bookshelf with the camera facing the dining room. My security system recorded audio from 3 angles. The post-nup sat in a folder by my plate. The deed sat beneath it. At 702, Grace entered using her old key. The lock did not turn. She tried again. Then she rang the bell. I opened the door. Her parents stood behind her. Her brother Mason was there, too, hands stuffed in his jacket pockets. Nolan stood at the back of the group, holding a bakery box like dessert could sweeten betrayal. Grace looked at the keypad. You changed the code. Yes. Her father frowned. That seems unnecessary. So did bringing Nolan. Nolan lifted the box. I came to clear the air. You polluted. Grace stepped in quickly. Ethan, enough. We're not doing this on the porch. I looked at her. She was wearing the cream sweater I bought her after her promotion. The one she said made her look soft enough for donors. Tonight she needed softness. I stepped aside. They entered. Nolan walked directly to the dining room and sat at the head of the table. My chair. Grace saw it. She said nothing. Her mother began arranging plates as if muscle memory could restore family. Let's all breathe, she said. A marriage is bigger than one terrible night. I remained standing. Grace sat beside Nolan. That choice entered the room like another person. Her father took the opposite side. Ethan, we watched the footage. It looked bad. It was bad. But Grace had seconds. She used them. Grace's fingers curled around her glass. I saved you. No, the second crew saved me. Her eyes flashed because I called them in. After Nolan was in your arms. Nolan leaned back in my chair. You keep saying that like it means something. I looked at his hands. He had placed them comfortably on my table. It means you were sitting in the wrong seat. He smiled. Grace invited me. This is not Grace's house. The room stilled. Grace looked up sharply. Excuse me. I opened the folder and placed the deed on the table. Premarital property purchased solely by Ethan Vale. No marital interest. Transferred. Her father reached for his glasses. Her mother stopped touching the plates. Nolan's gaze flicked from the deed to Grace. Grace's voice lowered. You are really going to weaponize the house? No. I'm going to identify the owner. We are married and separated as of yesterday. Her brother Mason looked at her. Separated. Grace glared at me. A piece of paper does not end a marriage. No. A rescue hammer through another man's window while mine filled with water helped. Nolan stood suddenly. I'm not listening to this. Good. I took his bakery box from the table, walked to the front door, and set it outside. Then I held the door open. Nolan stared at me. You want me to leave? I wanted you never to come. Grace rose. Ethan, if he leaves, I leave. I nodded once. Then choose faster than you did at the river. Her mother gasped. Grace's face tightened, but she did not move. Nolan grabbed his jacket. Fine. Let him have his little power trip. He walked toward the door. At the threshold, he turned back and looked at Grace. You coming? There was not a question on leash. Grace took one step. Her father said grace. She stopped for the first time. Her family saw the shape of it. Not the rescue. Not the accident. The arrangement. Nolan first. Everyone else later. I handed Nolan a printed sheet. He looked down. Notice of demand to preserve evidence and cease use of second reach branding. His brows pulled together. What is this? You have 24 hours to return all foundation equipment, clothing, access badges, donor lists, and devices. Grace crossed the room. You cannot do that. I own the trademark through Vale Systems' charitable arm. That foundation is my work. It was your face, my money, my platform, his invoices. Nolan crumpled the edge of the paper. Swimme. I am. He stopped. I did not raise my voice. That made it land harder. Grace moved closer. Ethan, you are escalating beyond repair. I looked at her. You said that like repair is on the table. Her lips parted for 1 second. The commander vanished, and the woman I married looked out. I almost recognized her. Then her phone buzzed. She checked it. Nolan had texted her from 6 feet away. I saw only the first line. Do not let him scare you. That was enough. I opened the family group chat and sent 3 files. The deed, the separation notice, a still frame of Nolan waving from his SUV while my cabin filled with water. Grace's mother's phone chimed on the sideboard. Her father's chimed next. Mason's face changed as he opened the image. He stared at Nolan. You waved? Mason asked. Nolan shoved the notice into his pocket. It is a still frame. It means nothing. Mason turned the screen toward Grace. He waved. Grace looked at the image. Her hand stopped above her phone. Nobody spoke. That silence was different from shock. It was worse. It was recognition. Nolan opened the front door himself. I am done being judged by people who weren't there. I said the cameras were. He left. Grace remained in the hallway, caught between the door and the table. Her mother sat down slowly. Her father removed his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. Mason walked to the window and watched Nolan get into a ride share. Grace whispered, You are turning everyone against me. No, I said, I am turning the lights on. Her eyes shone, but no tears fell. She still had too much pride. Where am I supposed to go tonight? She asked. I picked up her overnight bag from beside the coat closet. I had packed it with clothes, medication, documents, and the framed photo from the hallway. I handed it to her. You made that decision before dinner. Her fingers closed around the strap. She looked past me into the house. Her house. She had always called it her safe place. Her proof that no matter how late she came home from saving everyone else would be there. The keypad behind her blinked red. Not anymore. Grace chose the station over the house. That was the smartest move she had. Left by morning. River Rescue issued a statement. Commander Grace Merritt Vale followed a dynamic rescue assessment under extreme weather conditions. Edited clips circulating online do not reflect the totality of the incident. Edited clips. I read that line twice while standing in my kitchen. One hand against my ribs. Coffee going cold. They were going to call the truth edited because the whole truth was worse. Nolan gave an interview before lunch. He wore a neck brace that had not existed in the hospital. He sat on his couch beneath a framed rescue certificate and spoke in a hoarse voice. I remember water rushing in. He told the camera. I remember being unable to feel my legs. Grace did what any trained commander would do. It breaks my heart that her own husband has turned a rescue into a marital attack. He paused at the right moment. A tear sat in his eye, but did not fall. Ethan has always resented our bond. I watched it once. Then I sent the clip to Mara. Her reply came fast. He just opened the defamation door. Good. Had a meeting at her office at 2. Not a boardroom. Not a dramatic glass tower. Just a legal office above a bakery with old wood floors and conference chairs that squeaked. The kind of place where people signed papers that changed real lives. Mara placed 3 stacks in front of me. Stack 1, defamation and false light. She tapped the second. Stack 2, foundation audit and trademark enforcement. Then the third. Stack 3, divorce filing and temporary asset restraint. I looked at the third stack. It was thinner than I expected. Mara followed my gaze. Clean prenup. Cleaner post-nup. No children. Premarital house. Separate business interests. Joint accounts limited. Grace signed without reading. She read enough to complain about the infidelity clause. I remember that night Grace had laughed and said, If I ever cheat, you could take the house plants. 2. I had smiled because we were newly married, and I believe people who joke about betrayal feared enough not to do it. Mara opened the post-nup. There is no morality penalty unless assets are misused or reputation damage effects. Your company, however, her foundation's use of your systems and Nolan's compensation bring us into recovery territory. Do it all. Mara leaned back. Once filed, this becomes difficult to soften. I thought of Grace's hand on Nolan's face while water closed over my mouth. File. At 2.41, Grace received the first legal notice at the station. At 253, Nolan received the second at his apartment. At 3007, the foundation treasurer called me. Her name was Diane Bell. She had sent me Christmas cookies for 5 years and never once asked why Nolan's invoices kept growing. Today, she sounded shaken. Ethan, I did not know about the personal charges. What personal charges? A pause. You have not seen the preliminary export. Send it. The spreadsheet arrived 2 minutes later. Hotel stays, restaurant bills, fuel reimbursements, consulting advances, a weekend lake resort labeled flood response retreat. Dates matched nights. Grace said she was sleeping at the station. I did not react. Reaction was for people who still hoped the facts would be kinder. I forwarded the file to Mara, then to Tom Alvarez with one line. Do not air yet. Verify. Grace called it 3.16. This time, I answered not because I wanted to hear her. Because people reveal more when they think they can still control you. Ethan, she said, breathless. What did you send Nolan? A demand letter. He is panicking. You should read it carefully. You cannot sue him for talking about how he felt. I can sue him for lying about me, causing a crash. She exhaled hard. He did not say you caused it. He implied I distorted it because I resented him. You do resent him. No, I am suing him. Silence, then softer. Why are you being like this? I looked at the spreadsheet on my laptop. Hotel, Blue Heron Lodge, 2 nights, King's Suite Foundation card. Where were you on March 14th? I asked what? March 14th. You told me you were at a night rescue certification. I was. Blue Heron Lodge offers certification now. The call went quiet long enough. I closed my eyes once, opened them, and the last soft thing in me stayed closed. Grace said, that was not what you think. It was charged to the foundation. It was a retreat with Nolan for planning in a King's Suite. Ethan, do not use my name like a rope. Her breathing changed. I could picture her standing outside the station, one hand over her mouth, eyes scanning for people listening. Grace hated looking uncontrolled in public. Good. Public was where she had built the lie. Public was where it would fall. She whispered, you're mixing things. No, you separated them. I'm putting them back in order. The accident is one thing. My friendship with Nolan is another. Your friendship built hotel rooms to my foundation. It was not your foundation. The IRS filing says otherwise. Another silence. Then anger came back to rescue her pride. You want to humiliate me? No, I wanted you to rescue me. The line stayed open. For once, she had no prepared answer. I ended the call. At 5, Channel 7 teased a follow-up. New data raises questions about rescue timeline and victim statements. At 6, Grace's department announced a press conference for the next morning. At 7:00, Nolan posted again. Some men would rather destroy a woman's career than admit she did not choose them first. I screenshotted it. At 8, Mara sent the filed divorce petition. At 9, my doorbell rang. Grace stood outside in her station uniform. Rain gathered on her shoulders. The same rain smell as the river. I opened the door but left the chain on. Her eyes dropped to it. That is new, she said. So is drowning alone. She flinched. Good words should touch the wound they came from. She held up a folder. I brought the department's full incident narrative. I want you to read it before tomorrow. Is it true? It is complete. That was not my question. Her jaw tightened behind her at the curb. Nolan sat in a car. Of course he did. I looked from him back to her. You brought him to my house again. He drove me. My department vehicle is restricted. Pending review. First actual consequence. Small but real. Grace saw me register it. Her pride forced her chin up. It is temporary. Most losses start that way. She pushed the folder toward the gap in the door. I did not take it. Instead, I slid a paper through the chain gap toward her. She looked down. Divorce petition. Her fingers froze. The porch light shone on the first page. Ethan Vale. Petitioner. Grace. Merritt Vale. Respondent. Her mouth opened, but before she could speak, Nolan got out of the car. What is taking so long? He called. Grace did not turn. Her hand shook once. Not much enough. Ethan, she said, do not do this before the press conference. I closed the door until only her face fit through the gap. You should have thought about timing at 8:43. Then I shut it through the door. I heard Nolan's footsteps reach the porch. I heard his voice. What did he say? Grace did not answer. Paper rustled. Then Nolan said, lower. He filed for the first time. He sounded afraid. Grace walked into the department press room like a woman trying to outrun a camera that had already caught her. She wore her dress uniform. Navy jacket. Polished badge. Hair pulled tight. No wedding ring. That last detail made the internet notice before the reporters did. I watched from Mara's office with a cup of coffee untouched in front of me. Tom Alvarez had called at dawn. We have the City Bridge feed. He said, and dispatch audio. Does it match mine? It makes yours worse for her. At 10 o'clock a.m., Grace stood behind a podium while Captain Pike opened with policy language. Extreme conditions, split-second decisions, incomplete online narratives. Then Grace stepped forward. Her hands rested on both sides of the podium. For 10 years, she began, I have dedicated my life to rescue work. I understand the public concern. I also understand the pain my husband experienced that night. But I reject any suggestion that I knowingly endangered him or prioritized personal history over professional duty. Personal history. Not X, not Nolan. She was still sanding the edges. Reporter asked, Commander, did you see your husband conscious in his vehicle before extracting Mr. Cross? Grace looked directly into the cameras. I saw multiple hazards. I acted according to accessibility. Mara glanced at me. I said, send it. She texted Tom. 30 seconds later, Channel 7 cut into the press conference live. The anchor's voice came over the feed. We are pausing here to show newly verified footage from the West Bridge incident, including city bridge cameras and dispatch audio, which appear to contradict parts of Commander Merritt Vale's statement. On screen, the view changed. Not my dash cam this time. A high-bridge camera. Cold, distant, unemotional. My sedan had broken through the guardrail, nose first, and rolled into the river at a lower angle. Nolan's SUV sat closer to the embankment, tilted but stable, window above the waterline. A timestamp ran in the corner. 8.4216. Dispatch audio played. Vehicle 1 taking water fast. Driver visible. Driver striking window. Then Grace's voice. I see him. The press room feed showed Grace still behind the podium. Her lips parted slightly. The footage continued. Nolan's voice cut through the rain, picked up by a responder mic. Grace. Over here. Then another responder shouted. Commander. Sedan is lower. Grace moved across the frame toward Nolan. The audio caught Nolan again. I'm stuck. Baby. Hurry. Baby. The word landed in the press room like a thrown glass. Reporter murmured something. Captain Pike stepped closer to Grace, but did not touch her. The footage zoomed. Nolan's arm lifted inside his SUV. He wiped his mouth. Then he waved. Not a desperate twitch. Not a trapped man spasm. A wave. The split screen showed Nolan's interview from yesterday where he said he could not feel his legs. Then the bridge footage showed him pushing against the steering wheel and shifting his hips before Grace arrived. The anchor said medical records obtained with consent from Mr. Vale confirm he suffered water aspiration, rib injuries, and lacerations requiring overnight observation. Mr. Cross was discharged the same evening. Grace reached for the edge of the podium. The press room camera caught it. Her fingers pressed so hard the knuckles turned pale. Tom had not stopped. Dispatch audio continued. Responder. Commander. Sedan first. Grace. Cross first. Move. Another responder. Vale is under faster. Grace. I said, cross first. There it was. No yelisi. No interpretación. An order. My wife's order. Cross first. Mara lowered her eyes for a moment. Not pity. Respect for impact on the press room feed. A reporter stood. Commander, why did you order cross first? After acknowledging your husband was lower in the water. Grace tried to speak. No sound came. Captain Pike reached for the microphone. We will be taking another reporter cut in. Did your prior romantic relationship with Mr. Cross influence that order? Grace's eyes moved toward the side of the room. The camera followed. Nolan was there. He had come to the press conference. Of course, he had. He stood near the wall in a dark coat. Face stiff. Neck brace gone. When the camera found him, he stepped backward. Too late. Another reporter asked, Mr. Cross, were you unable to move your legs as you stated yesterday? Nolan turned away. That small movement did more damage than any denial. Grace finally found her voice. I made the call I thought would save the most lives. Tom's producer must have been waiting for that line. The broadcast cut to my cabin audio. My hand hitting glass once. Twice. 3 times. Then my voice, but clear. Grace. The room heard it. The city heard it. Grace heard herself, not answering. Her face changed. Not dramatically. Not like a villain collapsing. Worse. Like a professional who knew exactly what the evidence proved. Her lips trembled. A tear slipped down before she could stop it. The camera did not look away. She said, "I need a moment." But live television does not return moments once it takes them. She stepped back from the podium. Her heel caught the platform edge. Captain Pike reached for her arm. She shook him off, then covered her mouth with one hand. Reporter asked, softer but still audible, "Commander, did you hear your husband call your name?" Grace looked at the microphone. Tears gathered fast now. "I heard a lot of things," she said. "Wrong answer. Every rescuer watching knew it. Every spouse watching knew it." 2. At 11.12, the department ended the press conference. At 11.119, River Rescue announced Grace was placed on administrative leave pending review. At 11.31, Second Reach's largest sponsor suspended funding. At 11.44, Nolan's consulting page disappeared from the foundation website. At noon, Grace called. I did not answer. At 1,203, her mother called. I did not answer. At 1,207, Mason texted. I saw the full audio. I am sorry. I replied. Thank you. At 12.21, Captain Pike called Mara asking whether I would consider a joint statement discouraging harassment toward rescue personnel. Mara looked at me. I said, yes. No mention of Grace's judgment. No protection for Nolan. No false unity. The statement went out under my name. Threats are unacceptable. Accountability is not harassment. Let the review proceed with evidence. By 2, comments under Nolan's posts had turned by 3. Someone found his old photos with Grace. By 4, Blue Heron Lodge began trending. That was not from me. Not directly. Tom had verified the foundation charges. He called at 4.18. Ethan, we have receipts for the Lake Lodge. Nolan's name. Grace's name. Foundation card. Also, one invoice marked Flood Outreach dated the same weekend. Use only what legal clears. We will. I looked at Mara. She nodded. We are filing the audit demand now. At 5, Grace finally came to Mara's office. She did not bring Nolan. Smart. Too late. But smart. Mara asked whether I wanted to see her. I said yes. Not because she deserved it. Because I wanted to watch her understand the difference between regret and consequence. Grace entered the conference room, still in uniform pants, but without the jacket. Her eyes were red. Her hair had loosened. She looked younger than she had that morning and older than she had in our wedding photos. She stood across from me for a long moment. She said nothing. Then they played it like I abandoned you. I looked at her. They played it in order. Her hands closed. Ethan. I froze. No, you ordered. I panicked. No, you prioritized. Her mouth tightened around the word. Then she whispered, Nolan needed me. That sentence finally made me lean forward. He needed you to break his window. I needed you to save my life. She closed her eyes. You were always strong. She said, you always handle things. Nolan, finish that sentence carefully. She opened her eyes. Too late again. The truth had already stepped out. Nolan was fragile. Nolan needed her. Nolan had history. Nolan got the first window. I stood. We're done here. She reached across the table. Ethan, please. Mara, move the divorce petition between us. Grace's hand stopped above the paper the same way it had stopped above my hospital bed. This time no one mistook hesitation for care. Mara said, all communication goes through counsel. Grace looked at her, then at me. You cannot mean that. I walked to the door behind me. Mara added, also, Commander Merritt Vale, you are formally notified that Second Reach Foundation accounts are subject to independent audit. Do not delete records. Do not instruct Mr. Cross to delete records. Do not communicate with donors using Mr. Vale's name. Grace turned slowly. What records? Mara slid the Blue Heron Lodge receipt across the table. Grace looked down. The little color left in her face drained away. I opened the door. Grace whispered, that is not what it looks like. I paused for once. I said, I hope it is. Then I left her standing with the receipt in her hand. Grace wanted two separate worlds. In one, she was my wife, wounded by my refusal to understand her impossible rescue call. In the other, she was Nolan's protector, the only person who understood his trauma, his pride, his failures, and apparently his hotel expenses. The problem with evidence is that it hates separate worlds. It connects doors. The next morning, I received Nolan's civil claim. He alleged emotional distress, reputational harm, and intentional interference with employment opportunities. He claimed I had released misleading footage to destroy him because of long-standing marital jealousy. Mara laughed once when she read it. Not loudly, just enough. He is trying to scare you into settlement. Can we answer today? We can answer with a counterclaim. Do it. She turned a page. He also says you threatened him at your home. He was recorded. I know. That is why I enjoyed that line. By noon, Nolan's attorney received 3 video clips. Nolan sitting in my chair. Nolan refusing to leave. Nolan saying, "Sue me." The civil claim did not disappear, but stopped breathing. So loudly. Grace came at me from another direction. She texted from a new number after I blocked her personal line. "No, you said counsel only. I will respect that after this. But please separate us from Nolan. Our marriage should not die because of his mistakes." I stared at the message. Our marriage had not died because of Nolan's mistakes. It died because Grace kept calling her choices his gravity. I forwarded the message to Mara. Then I blocked the new number. At 3, I went to the police station. Not for revenge. For paper. A detective named Ingram took my statement in a small interview room with beige walls, and a vending machine humming outside. Mara sat beside me. I gave him the crash footage, the bridge camera references, Nolan's public statements, his civil claim, the foundation expense list, and the home security recording. Detective Ingram watched the key clips without changing expression. Good detectives do that. They let evidence speak before their eyebrows do. When a clip reached Nolan, waving from the SUV, he paused it. He said he could not move. Yes. And your wife's department statement supported accessibility priority. Yes. He wrote something down. Then came a home clip. Nolan saying, "Sue me." Ingram's pen stopped. People should say that less often. Mara said, "We agree." Ingram took copies, issued a report number, and said the crash causation file would be reviewed with traffic investigators. When I walked out, Grace was in the lobby. She had clearly been waiting. No uniform this time. Jeans, dark coat, hair down, less commander, more wife, or the version of wife she thought might still work. She stood when she saw me. Mara stepped slightly forward. Grace looked at her. "I'm not here to argue." I kept walking. Grace followed. "Ethan, please." 10 minutes. Mara said, "My client is not available." Grace ignored her. I told Nolan to drop the claim. That made me stop. I turned and her eyes flickered. He said, "His lawyer thinks he has a case. No, he thinks you will pressure me." She looked tired enough to be honest and proud enough to resist it. "He is scared." She said he should be. "He is losing work." He lied on television. So did I. Apparently. Is that what you wanted to say? You studied hard? There was the bargain. She would admit just enough to make me softer, not enough to make herself accountable. I said, "Apparently." Her throat moved. "I should have gone to you first." I waited. She looked down. "I knew your car was lower." There it was. Small, barely audible, but real. Mara's eyes sharpened. Grace realized it too late. I did not smile. I did not pounce. I did not say gotcha. The lobby camera above the door had already caught everything I said. Put that in writing. Her head lifted. Pain crossed her face. But anger came right behind it. "You brought me here for that." "No, you followed me here for that." She took a step back. An unformed officer at the desk glanced over. Grace noticed and lowered her voice. "You used to protect me." "Yes. And now I protect myself." The sentence landed between us cleaner than any insult. Her eyes filled again. But tears had lost power after live TV. They no longer moved me. They only confirmed pressure. Grace whispered, "I cannot lose my command." "Then you should not have used it on Nolan first." She looked toward the exit. "He is all I have left in that department." "No," I said. "He is why you have less left every day." She did not answer. Outside, a city vehicle waited. At the curb, not a department SUV, a plain sedan, administrative transport. Another small loss. Another locked door. I went home and found 3 letters in the mailbox. One from River Rescue, confirming my complaint was under formal review. One from Second Reach's board acknowledging the audit demand. One from Grace's attorney requesting mediation before further hostile action. I read that phrase twice. Hostile action. Apparently drowning quietly would have been marital cooperation. I placed the letters in separate folders. At 6, Tom called. We have a problem. What kind? Nolan is claiming the foundation expenses were approved by you. I looked at the donor records on my desk. He has my signature. He says he does. Mara on speaker went silent for half a second. Then she said, send us whatever he provided. The email came through 5 minutes later. A scanned approval form. My name at the bottom. Ethan Vale. The signature was close. Not good. Close. A person who saw my signature once a year might believe it. A bank would not. A forensic examiner would not. I enlarged the image. The pressure was wrong. The E curled like Nolan's handwriting. The date format used slashes. I used periods. Grace had seen enough of my documents to know that. So if Nolan submitted this, either he forged it without her knowing, or she did not look because the lie helped her. Both options were useful. Mara's voice came through the speaker. We had forgery. I looked at the scan form. Nolan had tried to climb out of the river by stepping on my name. This time there would be no rescue line. For years, people called me Grace's quiet husband. At award dinners, they placed me at the edge of photos at fundraisers. They thanked Grace for her tireless vision and Nolan for his field experience. Then someone would nod toward me and say, and Ethan, of course, for supporting, as if the rescue drones purchased themselves, as if the waterproof dash units grew out of goodwill, as if the donor platform, telemetry software, training, simulator, emergency upload servers, and half the foundation budget came from applause had let them believe it because Grace once squeezed my hand under the table and whispered, you know what you mean to me? That was enough then. It was not enough now. The truth did not come out in one dramatic speech. It came out through canceled access. First, a city safety director emailed Grace's department asking why Vale Systems had suspended technical support for 3 pilot rescue units. Then, a donor asked why Second Reach's emergency portal now displayed under independent audit. Contributions temporarily restricted. Then, a local blogger found public records showing Vale Systems owned the intellectual property behind the rescue command dashboard Nolan had claimed to co-develop. Then, Mason posted one sentence in the family chat. I just learned Ethan built the system Grace's team uses. Why did nobody know? Grace did not answer. Her mother sent a question mark. Her father wrote, Grace. Still nothing. By afternoon, Channel 7 called it the quiet husband behind the rescue tech. I hated the phrase, but it was accurate enough to hurt the right people. At 3, I attended the Second Reach board meeting remotely. Grace was present. So was Diane, the treasurer. Nolan was not invited, which meant he joined from Grace's speakerphone until Mara objected. This audit concerns Mr. Cross. Mara said he does not participate unless formally requested. Grace said Nolan has institutional knowledge. I said Nolan has invoices. The board chair, a retired judge named Helen Marks, looked over her glasses. Commander Merritt Vale, place your phone on the table and disconnect Mr. Cross. Grace hesitated. Helen's voice sharpened. Now Grace into the call. Her face carried the insult of being told no in a room she used to command. Diane presented preliminary findings. Blue Heron Lodge, 3 hotel stays, 9 restaurant charges, a personal laptop, consulting fees paid before contracts were approved, mileage reimbursements on days Nolan's vehicle toll records placed him in another county. Then came the forged approval form. Helen stared at it. Mr. Vale, she said, is this your signature? No. Grace turned toward me quickly. Ethan, think carefully. The room stilled. Mara's head turned slowly. Helen said, Commander, are you suggesting he may not remember signing? Grace's face tightened. I am saying there were many documents during that period. I opened the folder beside me and held up 4 documents. My signature from that month. Bank authorization, vendor contract, insurance renewal, donation transfer. Mara shared them on screen. The signatures lined up. Then she placed Nolan's form beside them. Wrong slant, wrong date format, wrong pressure, wrong ending stroke. Diane whispered, Oh my God. Grace stared at the screen. Her lips moved once, but no sound came out. Helen said who submitted this form. Diane checked her notes. It came from Mr. Cross's foundation email. And who approved his foundation email access? Another silence. Diane swallowed. Commander Merritt Vale. Grace closed her eyes. The board chair wrote something effective immediately. Helen said Nolan Cross is suspended from all foundation activity. Commander Merritt Vale. Your administrative authority over financial approvals is suspended pending full review. Grace's eyes opened. Helen, that is unnecessary. It is necessary. I built Second Reach. Helen's voice remained flat and apparently forgot who paid for the bricks. Grace recoiled as if slapped. I did not enjoy that line. I noted it. There's a difference. The meeting ended with 3 actions. Audit expansion, referral to law enforcement if forgery was confirmed, temporary control of funds transferred to an independent administrator. Grace stayed on screen after others left. Only Mara, Helen, and I remained. Grace looked at me. Did you know this would happen? Yes. How long have you been preparing? Since the hospital. She laughed once, bitter and small. One night, that is all it took for you to turn on me. No. One night is all it took for me to stop covering. Her eyes shone. You think I never loved you? I looked at the screen behind her through the blurred office glass. People moved around the station. Nobody entered. Nobody interrupted. Administrative leave had made her visible but untouchable. I think love became something you used to silence me. Her mouth parted. That is not fair. Neither was Cross first. She flinched again. That phrase had become a key. Every time I used it, the door opened to the same room. The river. The window. The choice. Helen ended the call before Grace could turn grief into argument. My phone rang immediately after. Unknown number. I let it go. A voicemail appeared. Nolan's voice. Ethan, listen, we need to talk man to man. Grace is spiraling because of what you are doing. You are hurting her to get to me. If you want money, say a number. If you want me gone, fine. But if I go down, I'm not going alone. I saved the voicemail. Then I sent it to Mara. She replied, good. He is entering the blame phase. At 7:00 that evening, Grace came to the house again. This time, she stood outside the gate. Her old remote no longer worked. She held it in one hand, pressing the button again and again, while the gate stayed closed. I watched from the upstairs office window. She looked smaller behind iron bars. Not because she was weak, because access had always made her seem taller. She called through the intercom. Ethan, I know you're home. I pressed the button. Counsel only. Please. Nolan lied to me. Then talk to your lawyer. I did not know about the signature. Then talk to the police. I did not sleep with him at Blue Heron. I paused, not because I believed her, because I realized she still thought that was the center. The bed, the jealousy, the old script. I pressed the intercom again. You left me underwater. Her face folded only for a second. Then she grabbed the gate with both hands. I made a terrible call. I know that now. Know you made your most honest one. A car turned onto the street. Nolan's Grace saw it too. He parked badly near the curb and got out fast. What are you doing here? She demanded. He pointed at my house. Fixing what he is doing to us. Us. Grace turned toward him for the first time. I saw the word hit her wrong. Not comforting. Evie Nolan stepped closer to the gate camera. You think you won? He shouted. You think people care about some paperwork? Grace will stand by me. She always does. Grace said, Nolan, stop. He did not. You were never enough for her. Ethan, you know that even when she married you. She came to me when things got hard. Grace's face went white. The gate camera recorded every word. I saved the clip before Nolan finished talking. He had just done what arrogant men always do. Mistaken a lock gate for a private room. Nolan's downfall did not happen on television first. It happened in a municipal conference room with bad coffee, fluorescent lights, and a printer that jammed twice before producing the evidence packet that felt appropriate. Men like Nolan love cameras when they can perform pain. They hate rooms where every claim needs a document. Detective Ingram sat on one side of the table. A traffic investigator sat beside him. Helen Marks represented Second Reach. Mara represented me. Grace came with her attorney, a thin man named Paul Sutter, who looked like he already regretted taking the case. Nolan arrived 10 minutes late. He wore a suit. without a tie and a face arranged for injury. Grace did not sit beside him. That was the first thing he noticed. "Grace," he said. She looked at the empty chair across from her. "Sit down." "Nolan." His expression flickered. "Small betrayal. Not mine. Hers." Detective Ingram opened with the crash. The traffic investigator projected a map of the West Burbridge Causeway. Not a dramatic video. Not a news clip. A map. Red line for my car. Blue line for Nolan's SUV. Telemetry for my system. Toll camera timestamps. Bridge traffic camera footage. Road sensors. Speed estimates. The blue line crossed 2 lanes sharply before impact. Nolan leaned forward. "That is wrong." The investigator clicked to the next slide. Video from a delivery truck behind us. Nolan's SUV moved from the outer lane across the wet road. My sedan braked. The impact pushed both vehicles toward the guardrail. Nolan had told reporters. "I lost control." The video showed him cutting across. Grace's attorney closed his eyes briefly. Nolan said, "I hydroplaned." The investigator clicked again. Vehicle speed, steering angle, brake timing, no loss of traction before lane change. She said, "You initiated the movement." Nolan's jaw worked. "I was trying to avoid debris." Another click. The road ahead was clear. Detective Ingram wrote something down. Then came the medical claim. Nolan had said he could not feel his legs. The hospital record showed no spinal symptoms reported on arrival. No neurological deficit. No imaging ordered. Discharged in 2 hours. Nolan shifted. "Shock can present later." Ingram said, "Yet you walked out." Nolan looked toward Grace. She did not help him. That silence seemed to scare him more than the evidence. Then Helen opened the foundation file. Invoices. Hotel receipts. Restaurant bills. The laptop. Mileage fraud. Nolan tried charm first. Second Reach was informal in its early days. We all sacrificed. A lot of things were approved verbally. Helen looked at him over her glasses by whom Grace knew. Grace's head lifted. There it was. The first bite. Nolan continued faster. "She told me to submit the lodge as outreach planning. She said Ethan never checked the small stuff." Grace stared at him. Paul Sutter put a hand near her arm, warning her not to speak. Nolan saw the movement and panicked harder. "And the signature," he said, pointing at the forge form that came through her office. "I did not forge anything alone." Alone. The word landed beautifully. Mara wrote it down. Detective Ingram looked up. "Mr. Cross, are you stating the signature was forged?" Nolan realized what he had said. "No. I mean the process was shared." Ingram's pen remained still. "That is not what I asked." Nolan's face flushed. Grace whispered, "You forged Ethan's name." He turned on her. "Do not act innocent. You needed those programs running. You wanted me visible. You wanted me back in the field. I trusted you. You used me." Her hand flattened against the table. For years, she had protected him from consequences, because consequences would make him fragile. Now he was using that protection as evidence against her. "You wanted to understand it." "Not completely. Not yet. Enough." Detective Ingram played the gate recording. "Next." Nolan's voice filled the room. "Even when she married you. She came to me when things got hard." Grace's eyes closed. Nolan shouted, "That was private." Ingram looked at him. "It was recorded outside. Mr. Vale's gate after you approached his property." Nolan pointed at me. He baited me. I had not spoken once. Mara said, "My client was inside his home." Nolan's attorney asked for a break. Detective Ingram denied it. Then came the final clip. The rescue audio again. Cross first move. Nolan calling Grace baby. My hand hitting glass. Not for public outrage this time. For official record. The room did not gasp. Official rooms rarely do. They document. Ingram closed his file. "Mr. Cross, based on the crash evidence and financial materials, we will be referring matters for further investigation concerning false statements, possible fraud, and forgery. You are not under arrest at this moment, but you are advised not to leave the jurisdiction." Nolan stood too fast. "This is insane," Helen said. "Second Reach will pursue recovery." Mara added, "Mr. Vale will pursue civil claims." Nolan looked at Grace. "Say something." Grace did not. His face twisted. "Fine," he said. "Then I will." Paul Sutter leaned toward Grace. Do not engage. Nolan pointed at her. She knew I was billing those retreats. She signed off because she wanted me close. She let everyone think Ethan was just the husband because she liked being the hero. Grace rose slowly. Her chair scraped the floor for a moment. I thought she would finally defend me. She did not. She defended herself. I never told you to forge his name. Nolan laughed. That is your line. That is what you care about. Detective Ingram stood. Mr. Cross. Sit down. Nolan did not. Two officers entered. Not dramatic. No shouting. They guided him into the hallway for further questioning. His suit jacket bunched at the shoulders. The confident man from the hospital was gone. The neck brace hero was gone. The ex who smiled through river rain was gone. What remained was a man realizing the woman he used as a shield could not stop paper. Grace remained standing. Her hands shook at her sides. She looked at me across the table. I did not know about the forgery. She said. I believed her. That did not save her. You knew about the river. Her face crumpled. Paul Sutter whispered. Grace. She sat down. Helen slid a document toward her. Commander Merritt Vale. The Foundation is placing you on immediate administrative removal from all second reach functions pending audit conclusion. Grace stared at the page. I founded it. Helen's expression did not change. You fronted it. Grace looked at me again. This time, not as wife, not as commander, as someone reaching for a door already locked. Mara placed another document beside Helen's amended divorce petition. Marital misconduct evidence. Asset preservation. Civil recovery claims. Grace. Read the first page. Her lips moved around the words, but did not form them. The third party had fallen. Now the final file had her name on it. Grace chose live television for her apology because she still believed cameras could give back what cameras had taken. She was wrong. Channel 7 agreed to interview her on one condition. No pre-approved questions. No editi de rescue futi. No. Nolan sitting off camera like a wounded prince. She accepted because refusing looked worse. I did not plan to watch. Then Tom Alvarez called. You should know. He said. She asked whether you would appear. No. I told her that. Good. She cried. That is no longer news. He was quiet for a moment. We are airing the full audio tonight. More than before. Legal cleared. Yes. Then air it. At 6. Grace sat under studio lights in a pale blue blouse. No uniform. No badge. No wedding ring. The absence of symbols did what symbols used to do. It told a story before she spoke. The anchor, Dana Ruiz, sat across from her. Grace, why are you here tonight? Grace folded her hands in her lap to apologize. She said her voice was rough. To the city, to my team, to the rescue community, and to my husband. Dana did not soften. Your husband has filed for divorce. Grace swallowed. Yes. Have you spoken to him? No. Why not? Grace looked down because he asked me not to. That was the first answer she gave that respected a boundary. Too late, but accurate. Dana continued. When you ordered Nolan Cross first, did you know Ethan Vale's vehicle was taking water faster? Grace's eyes filled. Yes. The studio seemed to shrink around that word. Dana let silence hold it. Grace wiped under one eye. I thought Nolan was more unstable emotionally. I thought Ethan was conscious, fighting, still able to hold on. That was wrong. It was not triage. It was personal bias. A month ago, those words might have mattered. Now, they were just a cleaner label on a dirty fact. Dana asked, did your past romantic relationship with Mr. Cross influence your judgment? Grace closed her eyes. Yes. No speech. No deflection. Just the word. It landed everywhere. Then Dana turned to a monitor. We're going to play extended audio from the incident. Viewers may find it disturbing. I stood in my living room, remote in hand. I did not sit. The screen went dark except for subtitles and timestamp. Rain, sirens, water, my fist hitting glass, my voice, Grace, responder sedan is lower Grace. I see him, Nolan, baby, please. Then another sound mine again, not a shout, a scrape of breath, Grace in the studio, Grace. Covered her mouth, the audio, continued responder, Commander Grace, Cross, first, move, then a quieter line, almost buried under rain all. She'll come. She always comes, Dana, pause the audio, Grace was crying now, but this time. Nobody rushed to save her from the camera. Dana asked, did you hear Ethan call you? Grace tried to speak. Could not. Dana waited. Finally, Grace nodded. Yes. Did you hear Nolan say? She always comes. Grace's hands twisted together. I heard him say something. I did not process it then. Dana's next question cut. Do you process it now? Grace looked into the camera for 1 second. I saw the woman from our kitchen years ago barefoot, laughing with flour on her sleeve, telling me she wanted to build something that saved people. Then the frame shifted back to the woman who let another man turn her compassion into a weapon. Yes, she whispered. I process it now. The interview might have helped her if Nolan had stayed quiet. He did not. At 6:23, while Grace was still alive, Nolan posted a statement through his attorney. Mr. Cross maintains that Commander Merritt Vale made all operational decisions during the Westbridge rescue and approved his consulting involvement with Second Reach Foundation. Dana received it on her tablet. Her eyes flicked once. Then she read it aloud. Grace's face changed in real time. There's a specific pain in being betrayed by the person you betrayed, for it does not deserve sympathy, but it is recognizable. Dana asked, Nolan Cross is now saying you approved his foundation role and made all operational decisions. Do you accept sole responsibility? Grace's tears stopped, not because she became strong, because shock froze them. I made the rescue decision, she said slowly. I did not approve fraud. Dana leaned forward. So, Mr. Cross is lying. Grace looked off camera. No Nolan there. No husband there. No family table. No department podium. Just lights. Yes, she said. He is lying. That clip went everywhere within minutes. Nolan's attorney tried to retract the statement. Too late. Grace had publicly called him a liar. He had publicly placed her under the bus. The bond she had protected over my body and the water snapped on live television. My phone buzzed. Grace's attorney, Mara, answered from her office and patched me in silently. Paul Sutter sounded exhausted. Mara, Grace wants to discuss settlement. Mara looked at me through the video. Call. I said nothing. She knew. Divorce settlement. She asked. Yes. Civil liability. A pause. We need to understand demands. Full cooperation with audit. No claim to premarital residence. Waiver of spousal support. Repayment schedule for any foundation expenses tied to marital benefit. Public correction of false statements regarding Ethan. No direct contact. Sutter inhaled. That is aggressive. Mara glanced at me. No, she said, that is available today. Another pause. And tomorrow. Tomorrow we add damages. I like Mara. She understood timing. After the interview, Grace came to my house. Not to the gate. To the sidewalk outside it. Paparazzi had started trailing her, so she wore a baseball cap low over her face. She stood under the streetlight with her phone in both hands. My intercom buzzed. I did not answer. She buzzed again. Then she sent one email through counsel. Subject: personal apology. Mara forwarded it with a note. You are not obligated to read this. I read it anyway, not because I was weak, because I wanted to know whether Grace finally understood which part mattered. Ethan, I heard you in the audio tonight in a way I did not let myself hear you that night. I have no defense for choosing Nolan first. I confused his need for my responsibility. I confused your strength for safety. I cannot undo the water. I cannot undo the humiliation. I know you may never forgive me. I am asking only for one conversation. Not as commander, not as victim, not as Nolan's defender. As your wife. Grace. I read it twice. Then I wrote one response to Mara. Reject direct contact. Proceed outside. Grace stood by the gate until rain began again. She looked up at the house once. The porch light was off. The courthouse did not care that Grace used to sleep with her hand on my chest. It did not care that I knew how she took her coffee or that she cried during old rescue documentaries, or that she once wrote my name inside her helmet before a dangerous flood response because she said I was her reason to come home. The courthouse cared about signatures, dates, evidence, separate property, misused funds, public statements, liability. That was why I trusted it. Feelings had failed at the river. Paper had not. Our first divorce hearing took place in a family courtroom with pale walls and a judge who had seen too many people mistake regret for repair. Grace sat across the aisle with Paul Sutter. She wore black. Simple. No badge. No soft donor sweater. Her hair was pinned low. She looked like a woman attending the funeral of her own public image. I sat with Mara. Between us were the documents. The premarital deed, the postnup, the foundation audit, the separation notice, the amended petition. The court had already granted temporary restraint on disputed accounts connected to foundation reimbursements. Grace's personal account was not frozen, but any transfers tied to Second Reach were flagged. She could not touch donor lists. She could not access the house. She could not use my company's systems. She could not speak for me, my company, or our marriage in public without legal risk. That was the first irreversible thing. Not divorce. Silence. The kind enforced by consequence. The judge looked at Grace's attorney. Does your client contest the premarital status of the residence? Paul whispered with Grace. Grace's hand gripped a pen. The pen did not move. Finally, Paul said, "No, Your Honor." One door closed. Does your client contest the validity of the postnuptial agreement? Another whisper. Grace looked toward me. Not at Mara. At me. I did not return anything except attention. Paul said, "No, Your Honor." Another door. Spousal support. Paul's jaw tightened. My client waves. Grace closed her eyes. 3 doors. Mara presented our recovery claims without theater. Foundation expenses were separate but overlapping. Some charges tied to Grace's direct approvals, others to Nolan's fraud. We were not asking the family court to decide criminal exposure only to preserve claims and prevent asset movement. The judge granted the preservation order. Grace's shoulders dropped half an inch, not dramatic enough. Then came reputational damages tied to false statements. Nolan had called me jealous. Grace had supported department language that minimized the facts. Her attorney argued stress, public pressure, and incomplete information. Mara played the lobby recording. Grace's own voice. Knew your car was lower. The courtroom listened. Grace stared at the table. The judge did not scold her. He did something worse. He wrote at the end. He ordered mediation on remaining financial details, maintained no direct contact, preserved my exclusive use of the residence, and scheduled the next hearing. Grace did not cry until the judge left. Even then, she did it silently. Paul put documents into his briefcase. Mara placed a hand lightly on my folder. We're done for today. But Grace stood. Ethan, Paul hissed. Grace. She ignored him. The bailiff looked over. Mara shifted beside me. Grace spoke fast as if speed could outrun rules. I know I'm not supposed to contact you directly. I know. I just need one sentence from you that is not through a lawyer. I looked at the bailiff, then at Mara. Mara said, "You do not have to respond." Grace stepped into the aisle. I lost command today. She said, I had already heard the department had demoted her from field commander pending license review. Administrative assignment only. No rescue authority. No incident leadership. No public training. Her badge still existed, but no longer opened the doors that mattered. I lost Second Reach. She continued, Helen removed me completely this morning. Donors are asking for refunds. My father will not answer my calls. Mason told me he cannot defend me. Nolan's attorney is blaming me. I understand consequences now. She took another step. The bailiff said, Ma'am. Grace stopped. Her eyes held mine. But I need to know if there is any version of the future where you and I sit down without all this. All this. The phrase almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny, because she still thought the evidence was outside the marriage, like lawyers and footage and court orders had invaded something pure. But the marriage was in the evidence. It was in Cross first. It was in Baby. Please. It was in She Always Comes. It was in her statement that I was strong enough to hold on while Nolan needed her. I stood. Grace's face lifted. Hope is cruel when it arrives late. I looked at her left hand. The ring was gone. Maybe for legal optics. Maybe because she finally understood she had no right to wear it. I said, You want a sentence? She nodded once. Here it is. The room seemed to narrow. I kept my voice low. I survived the river. I will not climb back into it. Her mouth opened. No sound came. I turned and walked out with Mara in the hallway. Reporters waited. Mara handled them. Mr. Ville respects the legal process and will not comment beyond the filings. Grace emerged behind us minutes later. The camera shifted. Someone asked, "Grace, do you regret choosing Nolan Cross first?" She froze. That question would follow her longer than my name ever had. Paul guided her away outside. Nolan stood near the courthouse steps with his own attorney. He had not known Grace would exit there. She saw him. He saw her. For a heartbeat. The two people who had treated me like an obstacle looked at each other without the protection of romance. Rescue adrenaline or my silence. Nolan spoke first. "You need to fix your statement." Grace stared at him. "You blame me on live TV. You blame me first. You forged my husband's name. Your ex-husband." He snapped. The word hit her harder than he meant it to. Ex-husband, not yet legally final. Already true in every way that mattered. Reporters turned cameras toward them. Paul tried to pull Grace away. Nolan kept talking. "You think he's going to take you back if you sacrifice me? Wake up. Grace, he is done with you. For once." Nolan told the truth. Grace looked past him toward me. I was already getting into the car. Her hand lifted slightly, like she might reach across the distance. Then the door closed. Luke drove in the side mirror. I saw Grace standing between cameras and Nolan with no badge. No command, no husband, and no script. That was not revenge by itself. That was consequence. Revenge was that I felt nothing urgent enough to turn around. The divorce became final on a Thursday morning. No storm, no dramatic rain, no hospital lights, just a clerk stamping paper behind glass. Mara handed me the decree in a folder. "Done," she said. That single word had more mercy than any apology Grace ever gave me. I walked out of the courthouse without looking for her. She was there anyway, across the plaza near the stone steps, wearing the same black coat from the first hearing. No cameras today. Public hunger moves on when the fall is complete. That may have hurt her more than the attention. At least outrage had treated her like she still mattered. Now people walked past. Grace held an envelope. Marla saw her and said, "I can take that." Grace's fingers tightened around it. "It is not legal. Then he is not required to receive it." Grace looked at me. "Please." I nodded once to Mara. Mara took the envelope. Grace's eyes filled, but she did not fight. She had learned something late, but real. Nolan's case had moved faster than expected because arrogance writes evidence in permanent ink. He was charged with insurance fraud, making false statements, and forgery-related offenses connected to the foundation approval form. Second Reach sued him for recovery. Veil Systems sued for trademark misuse and reputational damage. His consulting license was suspended. His old rescue contact stopped returning calls. The neck brace interview became a meme for 3 days before disappearing into the harsher archive of public jokes. He tried to bargain by giving investigators every message Grace had ever sent him. Some helped him. Most hurt them both. Grace was not charged with forgery. The evidence did not prove she knew about the signature before the audit. But she was not clean. The department review found personal bias in a critical rescue decision. False or incomplete incident reporting and failure to disclose conflict of interest. Her command status was revoked. Her rescue certification was suspended for 2 years, pending retraining and psychological review. She resigned before the final discipline hearing, calling it a necessary step back. No one called it brave. Second Reach removed her name from leadership materials. Donors demanded oversight. Helen Marks rebuilt the organization without Nolan, without Grace, and without the myth that heroism excuses bad records. The house remained mine. The donor platform remained mine. The emergency upload system became the center of a new safety protocol adopted by 3 neighboring counties. This time the press release did not mention Grace. It mentioned Veil Systems. It mentioned transparent rescue data. It mentioned objective triage review. It mentioned me. I did not need applause, but I did not hide from credit anymore. That was the last thing Grace lost that people rarely counted. She lost the version of me who stood quietly at the edge of her frame. A week after the divorce, Mara forwarded the letter Grace had tried to hand me. I read it in my office, not because I missed her, but because endings deserve to be clean. "Ethan, the decree is final today. I know I do not have the right to ask for anything. Nolan took my trust and used it, but that is not the full truth. The full truth is that I gave him a place to stand. I gave him your place at tables, in my work, and finally at the river. I told myself you were strong enough to wait because you had always waited. I understand now that I mistook your patience for something I owned. I lost my command. I lost second reach. I lost my father's respect for a while. Maybe forever. Mason barely speaks to me. The city knows what I did. Nolan is telling anyone who will listen that I ruined him. Maybe I did. Maybe we ruined each other. But the worst loss is quieter. It is reaching for my phone, and knowing your number is no longer a place I'm allowed to go. I am sorry I heard you and still chose him. Grace. I folded the letter and placed it in the folder with the final decree. Not in the safe. The safe was for things worth protecting. This was only proof. That afternoon, I drove to Westbridge. The guardrail had been replaced. The river moved below, dark and calm, pretending it had never tried to swallow two cars in a marriage. I stood at the overlook for a while. A city crew had installed new emergency markers along the causeway. One of my company's sensor boxes sat beneath a sign sealed in weatherproof casing. Small, unshowy, useful. Young rescue trainee nearby pointed it out to another. That is the Vale unit, he said. Uploads everything before the cabin floods. No more guessing. No more guessing. That was enough. My phone rang. Unknown number. I let it ring. Then a voicemail appeared. I did not play it. A minute later, Mara texted. Grace tried calling from a new number. I will remind her counsel only is still active for settlement issues. I wrote back. Thank you. Then I blocked the number. There are people who think closure is one last conversation. They're usually the people who benefited from every unfinished one before it. Grace wanted to sit across from me and be seen as more than the worst thing she did. Maybe she was more. Most people are. But I did not owe her the room, the chair, the listening face, or the old husband who softened every hard edge so she could keep holding Nolan's broken pieces. She chose him when my window was still intact. She chose him when my lungs were filling. She chose him at the hospital. She chose him at my table. She chose him until evidence made him too expensive. By the time she chose regret, I had already chosen air. Nolan lost his false hero story, his consulting money, his rescue network, his legal safety, and the woman whose guilt had protected him. Grace lost her command, her foundation, her public name, her access to my home, her financial comfort, her family's blind loyalty, and her marriage. I lost the illusion that love guarantees priority. Then I gained something cleaner, a life where nobody could call my silence consent. 6 months later, Channel 7 ran a follow-up on rescue transparency reforms. Tom Alvarez asked if I wanted to appear on camera. I declined. Instead, I sent a written statement. Rescue decisions should be accountable to facts, not relationships. Evidence saved my life after people failed to. I hope the next person trapped behind glass is reached by training before history. They read it on air over footage of new rescue units mounted on bridges and patrol boats. No mention of my marriage. No mention of Grace crying. No mention of Nolan. Good. Some stories do not deserve to keep owning the ending. That night, I returned home, entered through a gate that opened to my code, and stood in the quiet hallway. The old rescue award photo was still face down in the drawer. I took it out for a moment. I looked at the version of Grace holding her plaque. Smiling like saving people made her immune to hurting them. Then I removed my half-visible face from the frame. I placed the cut photo of myself into the shredder. The machine hummed. Paper teeth took the old version of me in thin strips. Grace could keep the award. Nolan could keep his lies. The river could keep the night. I kept the footage, the decree, the house, the company, the truth, and the life I almost did not get to walk back into. My wife saw my car sinking and broke her ex's window first. So, I showed the world what she chose. And when she finally cried on live TV, I did not change the channel. I watched until the truth finished speaking. Then I turned the screen off and never looked back.